So this is B207A, week 14. This is the last week of the course. And we are still in block 2, which is about globalization. In this session, we will discuss session 4, supply chain management. So before we get started, have you heard about this term, supply chain management? Can you translate it? I'm sure you have heard of it because in the last 2 years, we have had, or the world has had problems worldwide with supply chain. What does supply chain mean?
سلاسل الإمداد.
Exactly. سلسلة الإمداد, right? So the supply chain is the chain or the sequence that the products go through, starting from raw material into production, into delivery to the final customer. So the products will go through so many steps, starting from raw material until it reaches us in the final destination. Okay, think about all the products that you use. Think about your laptop, think about your shirt, think about your car, how long it has been, okay, all the trip it made before it reached you. Okay, it started as a raw material, it was shipped, just like we talked the other day about the tennis ball, until it reaches the final consumer. So by the end of the session, you should be able to understand the general benefits of supply chain management and also the advantages and disadvantages of vertically integrated supply chain management. We will talk about outsourcing and the phenomenon of the bullwhip effect. Here's a good definition of supply chain. Supply chain management encompasses the planning and management of all activities involved in sourcing and procurement, conversion, and all the logistics management activities. So imagine how much coordination, how much collaboration is needed between the producers and the suppliers and the transporters and the retailers and the customer. Okay, they need a lot of information in order to make this smoothly and with the lowest cost. Okay, because remember, when the cost of the supply chain is high, the customer will be affected by this high cost because the customer will pay for it at the end of the day. Okay, so we need coordination and collaboration, which can be suppliers, intermediaries, third-party service providers, and customers. In essence, supply chain management integrates supply and demand management within and across companies. It starts with forecasting or guessing how much, it's an educated guess of how much the demand will be for a certain product before making the product. All right, so it starts with the customer, with a general demand of a certain product. Let's say we are producing a supermarket product, like a shampoo, for example. We know from previous sales records that this shampoo is demanded. For example, X number of bottles are required per month. Okay, and also this might change from month to month, depending on whether you are in the summer month or in the winter month or spring or fall or whatever. Okay, so you would have previous data to help you forecast the demand, and then based on that demand, you know how to produce and when to produce your products. This is about supply chain management. The main theory of supply chain management is that it's better to optimize the supply chain as a whole. We want to make it very efficient as a whole chain, okay? What is the difficulty of optimizing the whole chain? The difficulty is that each one of the members is a different business. Each one has a different goal. Each one has a different strategy to achieve their goals. Okay, so this is the difficulty in coordination. All these businesses will be coordinating together in order to achieve this efficiency. A main source of waste is the delay of resource in a system. Okay, so suppose that you produce the shampoos without knowing how much the customer demands. Okay, so you just produce 1,000 bottles, okay, blindly. What would happen if you just produce whatever number? You have two things that could happen. You have either produced less than what is needed, or you have produced more than what is needed, right? So, what happens if you produce more than what is needed? The products will go to waste in the sense that they will be stored in a storage room, they will be stored at the distribution center, they will be stored somewhere. Okay, and in supply chain, if you have a high level of stock, لو عندنا level عالي من الستوك من البضاعة يعني a high level of the stock stored and not being sold, this is a waste. It's a waste of space. It's a waste of money because you have paid for the product to be made. It's a waste in general. What we need is to be very close to the number that is really demanded. What happens if you produce less than what you need? There is more demand, your customers will be dissatisfied because they can't find your product. Okay, so either way, you will be losing money. Whether you will lose money in sales or whether you will lose money in storing the products and making them. This is why it's extremely important to find this optimal number of items that you need to produce and to send and to distribute and to place at the shelf in the supermarket. Okay, so a typical example of a complex supply chain is the production of multi-packs of canned soft drinks for supermarkets such as Tesco. Tesco is a supermarket in the UK. Okay, just like we can say Panda or Danube here in Saudi Arabia. The most challenging and complex component of this product is the aluminum can. You see the can in which you put the soft drink. Okay, suppose you have a Pepsi drink, it has a can. Okay, so this is an example of a supply chain. It starts with the mine, al-manjam, mine. Okay, because this metal comes from the mine and goes into a certain process, okay, until it reaches a hot roller. A hot roller is where you have to roll the metal to make it like sheets before you turn it into a bottle, okay? And then after the hot roller, you take it into a cold roller, and then you make the can, and you place the empty cans in a warehouse. Okay, after you place the empty can in the warehouse, you are going to send it to the butler who is going to fill it with a drink. Okay, and then after the drink is filled, the drink, the cans that has drink inside will be stored in a warehouse. And then it goes to the supermarket warehouse. And then from the supermarket warehouse to the Tesco store. And then from Tesco store to the customer's home. All right? Now, from the customer's home, hopefully, the customer will send it to a recycle center. They will remelt it, bidawbuha. They will remelt it. They will send it again to the hot roller, and it will repeat the process again. Okay, now think about how much money is tied in this process. قديش عنا money محبوس جوات هالprocess, because we have metal here, we have products going from one place to the other, we have cans stored here, and then bottles stored, and also you store it at home until you drink it. So in the process, there are high amounts of money being spent and يعني sacrificed in order to do this. One of the real surprises is just how difficult it can be to coordinate activity across a supply chain. Just like I said before, it's hard to coordinate the activity because these could be different businesses. Maybe this is a different business than this, and this is another business than this. Okay, all these are different businesses. Maybe only the butler and the butler warehouse is the same business. Okay, but here you have 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, a minimum of 6 businesses before they reach us, the customer. All of them are working on this can, very simple product that we use every day. Okay, all of these businesses are working on this can. All right, so the coordination here is difficult. It's very difficult to coordinate activity across the supply chain. Supply chains are inherently unstable because of a phenomenon known as the bullwhip effect. I will explain what a bullwhip effect is, okay? Where demand fluctuations magnify through the supply chain. This instability creates constraints on how supply chains can be managed. Okay, so let's see what we mean by the bullwhip effect. The word bullwhip reminds me of dreamwhip. Do you do dreamwhip at home? Okay. So after you do the dreamwhip, what does it make at the top? It's the cream. Okay? So you put the powder, you put the milk, and then you blend everything together. Supposedly, how do you know that the dreamwhip is good? It's خلاص, you have to stop mixing. The texture and the peaks that go, right? So it's characterized when you start having peaks in the cream that you are making, correct? So just remember this when you remember the word bullwhip. Just like dreamwhip has peaks, also, okay, the bullwhip has those peaks of demand, which I will explain in a while. Okay? Right. So, as we said, we are going to estimate how much the customer is going to demand, how much the customer demand is, in order to know how much to produce. How do we know the customer demand? Who is going to tell us? Is it the customer themselves? Who tells us how many bottles the customers are buying every day? The store, exactly, the supermarket, right? So Panda would be telling how much it's selling every day or every week or every month. Who is going to tell? Does Panda has a direct contact to the manufacturer? No. Who does Panda buy from? The wholesaler, exactly. Okay, so Panda, the store will tell the wholesaler that they need X number of bottles. Okay, type. Notice how the demand here changes with time. This could be daily sales, this could be weekly, monthly, whatever sales, okay? Okay, so when the demand from the store is sent to the wholesaler, what does Panda say? You know what? Yesterday I sold 100 bottles, okay? I will order 105 instead, just to make sure that I have enough to cover for the next period. Or, okay, so again, it could be daily, weekly, monthly, or whatever. Okay, let me call it period. Okay, so what Panda did as the supermarket, they went to the wholesaler and they increased a little bit. They increased the demand a little bit. So this has different peaks. Okay, remember the Dreamwhip peaks. Okay. Now, the wholesaler will do something similar also. Who does the wholesaler order from? From the manufacturer. Also, the wholesaler says to themselves, oh, Panda needs 105, Danube needs 200. Let me order a little bit extra. What if somebody else or another customer needs more? So also they add on that demand. All right. So the demand curve becomes a little bit different as well. The manufacturer will do something similar. They will go to their supplier because they want to order maybe the cans, they want to order the syrup, whatever they make the syrup with, right? And they order more. Okay, so each one of these, look what they are trying to do. They are trying to protect themselves from going out of stock, right? So they order a little bit more. All right, so you end up producing a totally different quantity than what is really needed. Okay. طيب, when you were a little kid, did you play this game? شو بيقولوا له? When you say something in the ear of your friend, you sit in a circle, you say something in the ear of your friend. تلفون مكسور؟ شو بتقولوا له؟ بيتغير الكلام من شخص لشخص، صح؟ مزبوط؟ آخر شيء كيف توصل الكلمة؟ كلمة ثانية، exactly. This is what's going on here. كل شخص بيزيد شوي على الكلام. بالآخر بيطلع عنا different outcome. This is what bullwhip effect is. Okay? So notice that in this supply chain here, when you have a solid line, this means the transportation of goods, the transportation of products. Products go from supplier to manufacturer to wholesaler to retail store to the consumer. Okay, what does this dotted line mean? في شيء عم يروح بالعكس. What does it mean? The feedback or the demand, how much demand is needed? Customer will tell the retail store, they will not tell it, but from their actions, the retail store will know. Retail store will tell the wholesaler, wholesaler will tell the manufacturer, so it goes in the opposite way. All right? So the bullwhip effect, you must remember that the bullwhip effect can occur at any point in the supply chain. The potential can never be completely eliminated. However, there are some practices that can reduce the demand amplification. What can you do to reduce this? What can you do? You can connect the system of the store directly to the supplier. Since we said nowadays we have systems, we have computers, we have internet, we have all these. Let's make a whole system that connects all of these together. Okay, this will reduce the effect of the bullwhip. Okay, so first of all, you can reduce the number of stages in the supply chain. You can share the demand information across the supply chain. This is what I said when I said share the information, share the data. You can generate smaller orders, but more frequent. You can reduce the lead times. What does lead time mean? The lead time is the time it needs for one product, for one batch or one unit to go from supplier to consumer. It's the total time. This is the lead time. Okay? كلمة lead time could be used for each of these businesses could be used differently. For a manufacturer, lead time could be for the time it can produce one product. This is the lead time for manufacturer. The lead time for a retail store is the time from when the store buys the product until it's sold. Okay? The total lead time is for the whole supply chain is the time it takes from starting with the raw material until it reaches the consumer. عرفتوا شو يعني lead time? It could mean something different for these different businesses. Also, what you can do is limit the promotions that create demand surges. So if the store has a promotion, buy one bottle, get another free, you will expect higher demand, right? When you do this, you need to let other people know, other supply chain members know that you are doing this demand change so they can take the proper action. Okay, so vertically integrated. What do we mean by vertically integrated supply chain? Vertical integration is when any one of these two channel members are owned by the same business. Yani, if the distribution and retailer are owned by the same business, this is vertical integration. Okay? Sometimes the مثلا distributor buys the warehousing, or sometimes they can be different businesses. Okay? If these two are owned by one business, they become one entity. This is what we mean by vertically integrated. Now, how do you decide how to be vertically integrated? For example, let me tell you about Apple. Apple has a lot of vertically integrated sections in its supply chain. Okay, vertical integration in Apple. Apple makes its own products. It produces its own products. It has its own stores, the retail stores. Okay, its own websites from which it sells to the customers directly. Yes, it also uses other retailers like Jarir, like Extra. You could buy an iPhone from anywhere, but also Apple makes sure to have its own, not only to rely on other other businesses. Okay. So first of all, you need to decide which direction to go. Do you want to go right or left? Okay. Usually it should be up or down with the vertical integration. Okay. So it depends on how you draw this supply chain, from up to down or from left to right. It's the same concept. All right. So you need to know in which direction you want to buy this other business. Also, the extent of the integration. Will you buy only one business or more than one business? All right. And the balance of the integration. How much capacity are we able to handle? Okay, so Apple, yes, it has its own stores, it has its own website, but not all the sales happen through that. So this is what we mean by capacity. Do we want to own enough capacity at one tier to meet all our needs, or should we buy some of the supplies? Yani, if you want to buy a supplier, Are you going to rely fully on the supplier that you bought, or will you still use both sources as a supplier? This is what we mean by the balance of integration. Okay, so one more related topic is called outsourcing. What does outsourcing mean? When you outsource an activity, or you outsource the making of a certain equipment for you to use in your production. What does outsource mean? Absolutely. It means involving a third party in that activity. It means giving another business the job of making a certain equipment or handling a certain activity in your business. Outsourcing, you hear it a lot. Outsourcing could be, you can outsource your human resource management. You can outsource your accounting. You can outsource making your product to somebody else. So you only make the design, you create marketing, but another factory makes it. This is what Zara do. That Zara does. Zara doesn't produce any of its products. It doesn't own factories. What it does, it outsources the production to other factories. Okay, a lot of other fashion brands do the same thing. They outsource this production to specialist factories. Okay, so what does Zara do then? What is Zara good at? Designing, marketing, and delivering the product quickly to the customer. This is what they are good at. Okay, so they want to focus on what they are good at and leave the rest to somebody else who could handle it better. Okay, can you imagine how much more investments Zara would have to make in order to open all these factories? Instead, they use other factories because with that, they can control how much quantities they want to produce every time. Okay, they might not always have this capacity to produce their products. Okay, so the advantages of outsourcing is first of all, is the ability to clear your time for internal capabilities. You focus on what you do best. And those companies who know what their capabilities and expertise are the ones who become very successful. Okay, you get access to somebody else's capabilities and expertise, somebody who could do your job very good. You reduce the need for capital investment. You have fewer staff that you direct. You outsource suppliers, usually have lower unit cost. Why? Because they produce in huge quantities. The same factory could be producing for Zara, for Mango, for example, for Nike, for other companies as well. So they produce in huge quantities. This will result in a lower cost. Clear, identifiable supply chain costs. So your cost will be very clear because you will have a contract with this supplier who is going to produce your items, and your cost will be clear. It can be used to expand overall capacity as well. You can hire more factories. Okay, so if factory A has full capacity already, you can use factory B and then factory C. Okay, without having to build the factory yourself. Now, the disadvantage, of course, outsourcing also has disadvantage. The first one is you lose some control. Okay, you also have a cost involved in managing those suppliers. You have to hire special people to manage going back and forth between your company and the suppliers. Potential closure of existing facilities. if you have any existing facilities, maybe you need to close it because now you are dealing with other suppliers. The risks of being dependent on a supplier, you are taking a risk. What if the supplier goes down? Okay, so you are taking an extra risk also for the supply chain risk in case the products don't arrive on time or there's not enough raw material for your product. Now, when you want to make a decision about outsourcing, the first thing you need to do is decide on the strategic value of your good and service. So just like we said about Zara, what does Zara do better? What does Zara is expert in? It's in the design of the collection. All right. By the way, Zara copies the big brands, but they do it very quickly. They copy the big brands and they take the ideas. They cannot copy paste. They are not allowed. And so many times they went into lawsuits for copying so much of another product by Chanel or Christian Dior or Dolce & Gabbana. But what they can do, they alter, they modify the design a little bit, but it would still look as taken or inspired by this other brand. Okay, so you need to know which activities you can outsource and which activities you cannot. Okay, some activities that you can outsource is human resource management. For example, you can ask another company to hire people for you. They are experts, they have CVs, they have connections, they have the expertise of making interviews and fitting the right people into the job. Okay, so let them do it. All right, you concentrate on what you do best. So here we have this matrix. The difference between the strategic value and the criticality. For the strategic value, if the strategic value is high, then, if the strategic value is high and the criticality of the activity is high, you're gonna do it in-house. Okay? We call this a proprietary activity. It's something that you are very good at. That's something that you should own. Okay? So you have to do it in-house. If, on the other hand, the strategic value and the criticality are low, then you can outsource it, like your accounting. Somebody else can do it for you. Let the expert do it. Your taxes, let the expert do it. Okay? Because if you are not in the business for taxes and it's not something very critical, let somebody else do it. Okay? You see lots of outsourcing examples in the air travel. For example, at the airport, the car parking is outsourced to a company. The baggage handling, the security in public areas, the airside security, and so on. All these are examples for outsourcing. Cleaning is outsourced to a company, to a cleaning company. Okay. Also, airline, they outsource their ticketing. Sometimes their call centers are not owned by the same company. The check-in, of course, it depends from country to country. What is the industry? What is the industry norm that happens in the industry in the country? Okay. IT services are so many times also outsourced because you need expertise, you need people who know in IT, just like you can outsource other activities. Any questions?